Dana is asking, Shalom Kvod Harav, my daughter is 15 and she hears me listening to your shulim. She asked me, what is Tikkun HaBrit and what do I answer her? She is a Bet Yaakov girl and I highly doubt that they talk to them about this. Well, she is considered a woman. At 15 years old, your Bet Yaakov girl is considered a woman, and she obviously has certain things that are happening in her body and in her mind that are very different than when she was younger. So if you don't teach her about these specific issues, the issues of women, the issues of men, and to make sure that she understands it, then you should know that some foreigner is going to teach her. Some stranger is going to teach her, and that stranger is not going to be as careful and as smart as you are about it. So you have to teach your daughter, you have to teach your sons about these specific issues, especially if they're already at an age where they're only a few years away from marriage. 15, she's 3 years away from marriage, 4 years away from marriage. Be'ezrat Hashem, you don't want your daughter to turn into one of these modern day girls, chas v'shalom, that waits until she's 75 to get married. You want your daughter to get married early. And the point is that in order for her to get married early, she has to know first and foremost what's forbidden, what's allowed. She has to know what Kedushá is. I would recommend that if you're not comfortable with this specific issue, then you simply just watch the lectures with her in the same room, simply so you know she's watching it. Watch the lectures with her about Tikkun HaBrit so she knows what's going on. But in general, she needs to know there's a difference between men and women. There's a not just as far as the way the body is and the hair is and so on, but there's a difference in the responsibility of the man versus the woman in the world. And one day when she becomes a wife, she's going to have a certain responsibility. But before that day comes, she has a responsibility to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to not lead men astray, to not lead men to sin, as a result of immodesty, as a result of immorality, and you have to teach her that it's not that boys are not allowed because they're bad. It's boys are not allowed because they're not your husband. And you are a holy young girl, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that decided that you are holy, and you're his daughter, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that you're only allowed to be together with your husband. And I can assure you that at 15 years old, even if she's a Bet Yaakov girl, she has heard a few things, perhaps more from her friends than she did from her teachers. So you have to decide whether you want her friends to continue teaching her or you want you to teach her. And like I said, you teaching her doesn't necessarily mean that the words have to come out of your mouth. They could come out of your teacher's mouth, a rabbi's mouth. And by watching specific lectures and to show that there are certain things that are forbidden for women. Every woman knows modesty is critical for the Jewish people, even for the non-Jews, but especially for the Jewish people. So you have to explain to her, why is modesty so critical? Modesty is so critical because kol kvuda bat melech panima, all of the honor of a woman is inside, it's hidden. But why is it hidden? Because you're not a garbage pail. You're not a garbage pail that's there to show yourself to the whole world and anyone can touch you. And what does that mean in literal terms? You tell her the issues that are intimate, the parts of your body that are private to you, that are covered for a reason, because these are holy parts of the body that the only person that's allowed to ever see them is your husband. And if somebody sees them that's not your husband, it's an extraordinary sin. If a person sees these body parts of a woman that's not his wife, it's an extraordinary sin that leads to wasting seed. And if a man makes seed as a waste, or even a woman stimulates herself, and they are both sinners that are creating demons that are going to hurt them in a very big way, as we talked about. It's in the Tanya, it's in the Ben Ishchai, it's in the Zohar Kadosh, and many Sfarim discuss these issues of how both men and women are forbidden from the masturbation, from promiscuity with themselves and with others. And you have to let your daughter know about these things, because if she does not find out from you, i.e. your teacher, she's going to find out from her friends or her frenemies, which are really enemies that pretend to be friends. She'll find out from bad sources. So it's better that you teach her the truth she needs to know anyway, under a controlled environment and from a responsible source, versus for her to find out on her own. And that's unfortunately one of the things that sometimes parents wait until their kids go to get married, or they want to get married, and they go to a kala class and a chatan class. And it's the first time they ever heard about the human body. This is not a good thing. I'm not saying that the person should know the entire anatomy of a body by the time he gets married, but at the very least it should know some basic things of what to stay away from. And anyone that thinks that their sons or daughters are too young to learn it is mistaken heavily, because the average child in Western society sees almost 30,000 murders by the time they're 18 years old. Okay? They see intimacy in the streets on a regular basis. They see things that the previous generation couldn't even imagine. Things that you wouldn't even see in movies, they see in everyday life. So, unless you teach your children what's allowed, what's forbidden, what's good, what's bad, it's in essence you're sending them into the wild and hoping for them to survive, which is unfair. So it's important to teach your kids how it is. Now, of course, you're going to teach kids differently at different ages based on their level of comprehension. If, let's say, like somebody asked me a question yesterday or the day before, well, what did they teach their 6-year-old about Brit? At that age, there's no true level of comprehension from the child. They're just beginning to comprehend who and what they are. So at that point, you simply, and younger, you tell the person, whether male or female, not to touch that part of their body. Not to touch the Brit for a guy, or you could even call it Brit for the girl, because again, she doesn't understand, and it's better to have a name like that than some other name. But not to touch that part of their body, under any condition. It's forbidden. Why? It's holy, and it's only for people that get married in the future. It's not for anybody else. Not allowed to touch it. As soon as they know they're not allowed to touch it, as long as you give them Torah education, they're going to become uncomfortable with that part of their body, which is good. This whole notion of being comfortable with our body is a feminist, sexual revolution, heretical mentality. That's not Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael is uncomfortable with their body. Why? Because we know that our body can do good or terrible things. So already at such a young age, you don't need to tell them about the details of Gehenna and how they're going to go to Kafakela and they're going to, rip them to pieces for wasting seed. At 6 years old, it's not necessary. You simply tell them, this is forbidden. And if you have a kid that's relatively clever, has a clever mind, tell them, listen, someone that touches it, Hashem punishes him with fire. That's it. That's already more than enough of a shiur to any normal child. Every so often you can remind them if you see that they're forgetting. That's it. You don't need to go into all the details. As they get older, and for girls even earlier than guys, because girls mature faster than guys, you have to tell them about not just to be modest and to cover themselves, which they should do already from a young age. The younger the better. Don't wait until your daughter is 10, 11 years old to dress her modesty. You should dress her modesty from the minute she's born. I never understood why religious parents, let their little infant young girls walk around with underwear. Even though she's only 1, 2, 3 years old, there's no reason for her to walk around with underwear or just her diaper next to other people. Simply never a reason for that. Worse yet, I've seen many times religious parents, they're modest, the guy's a rabbi, the woman is a rabbanit, everybody goes to yeshiva, but the little kids walk around practically half naked like they're secular. Never really understood that mentality. The kids should be modest practically at all times. Why? If they get used to this becomes the new normal for them. This becomes the normal for them. And you want this to be the normal for them. But if they know that there's another option, this could be problematic. Either way, when you're teaching your kids not to touch that part of the body, when you're teaching your kids as they grow up other things, you're teaching them based on their level of comprehension, and you explain to them that modesty is not just because it looks nicer, and it's more reserved, and it's more majestic. it's also because there are certain things that are forbidden to show anyone else. Why is it forbidden to show? Because showing leads to acts, and those acts are forbidden. And again, based on your child's age, you have to tell them, you're not allowed to act like an Abba and Ima if you're not an Abba and Ima. You're not allowed to act like husband and wife if you're not a husband and wife. And again, as they get older, you have to be a little bit more detailed. But always appropriate, always, use the right words, always have patience. But make sure you inform your kids, because I'm telling you, in today's world, you're saving people by giving them this information at a young age. If you don't do it at a young age, they're going to find out this information anyway. But they're going to find it from pornography, they're going to find it from their friends, they're going to find it from unreliable sources that are going to destroy them. And then what's going to end up happening is they end up on my desk. They end up at my desk telling me that they're addicted, telling me they've already been wasting seed or promiscuous for several years. Sometimes already seems like a lost cause in their mind because they've been doing it for so many years, and so on and so forth. And again, it's not impossible to help them, but it's unnecessary to get to such a point if you simply do your job as a parent and tell them before they get to that point. And forget about this discomfort. Forget about the discomfort. Oh, I'm not comfortable. It's my daughter. What should I tell her? Or my son. I don't know what to tell him. Listen, that Kedushá is a part of the body, and thereby it's a part of the Torah. Chas v'shalom, Rav Kotler, alav v'shalom, one of the forefathers of American Judaism, built Lakewood. He says, Chas v'shalom, that we become embarrassed to discuss Kedushá with our children, with our students, while people are acting prutzim, immodest in the streets. We are embarrassed to discuss it while people are doing it openly in the streets. It's the opposite. They should be embarrassed. We should be proud to discuss Kedushá. So you have to know, if you don't find out, if you don't tell your kids in one way or another, either directly by you teaching them or by indirectly by you having them watch a shiur. I have several shiurim about this topic of Tikkun HaBrit. I have shiurim about modesty. I have shiurim about even kosher intimacy. A person needs to know that this exists. And again, this is different ages. You have to use your own common sense of what's appropriate to your for different children. At 15 years old, they're not as a girl especially. It's if not now, it's very soon that she needs to know this stuff exists. You don't want them to find out about these things for the first time in their life, or at least according to your parent, to you or to the people, when they're in their chatan class and the kala class. Many times they already found out beforehand, and they found out a bad version of it. They found out a disrespectful version of it. They found a inappropriate version of it, and then when they meet sometimes the chatan instructor or the kala instructor, sometimes the chatan instructor and the kala instructor will tell them certain things that they've never heard of, and they will seem fine, even though sometimes it's not fine. And there's unfortunately some stories out there that people were told to do inappropriate things, and they didn't know it was inappropriate because they never learned anything. So keeping your children ignorant is only good to a certain extent and only good to a certain age. Once they already get to a point where they have a brain, they have a thought process, they're able to discuss things, they're able to think for themselves, you have to start giving them the information that they're going to need for the rest of their life. They're going to learn about it anyway, and it's better they learn about it from a reliable source. Hopefully that answers your question, and Baruch HaShem will move on. Let me know what you think, and make sure to share it, because other people need to learn too.